The School for Whatnots, Chapter 52. The Narrator's Aside. This is a very aside. Something maybe only I'm wondering about, so you're welcome to skip ahead if you want. No? You know what? This is an important question. It's about how I told the story. You may have noticed, right up until Max and Josie encountered the very first awful video, I showed you only good moments of their friendship. Max and Josie meeting in kindergarten and bonding instantly over mud puddles and cheese crackers and crayon colored fish. Josie trusting Max enough to tell him the truth. Max believing Josie. Both of them being loyal. I told you again and again what good friends they were. What great friends. What best friends. Would you have believed me so much if I told you from the very first about the animal crackers Josie swiped from Max, or the test Max cheated on by stealing Josie's answers? Would you have believed me as much if I told you how many times they fought, how many times they disagreed, how many times they made up and then, in the blink of an eye, started arguing again? But it's all true, it's all part of the story. I just wanted to wait to tell you that part until now, because nobody's perfect. Nobody's happy together all the time. Nobody that's certain all the time of who they want to be or who they want their friends to be. Even best friends aren't perfect, and neither are androids. Chapter 53. Max. Upset. Max felt as if like he'd been through a tornado, an emotional tornado. He wanted to forget everything he'd seen and grin back at Josie as though he trusted her and Lola to fix everything. As though even without Mom and Dad and Nurse Beverly, he'd always have someone to watch over him. The Max he'd been yesterday would have done that. But the past 24 hours had changed him. Even he didn't understand what he was anymore, or who he was anymore. Today's Max blurted out, "We're not alone!" "What?" Josie asked. She jerked her head to gaze toward Lola, so Max looked in the direction too. Lola had turned tight-lipped now, her face still as a marble statue. She might as well have been in a frozen computer screen. She was no help at all. I think I think this is actually a competition," Max said hesitantly, "with other kids or whatnots, because when I was running, I saw something. Someone? No, something. Just ahead of me, I saw Ivy." He thought Lola might congratulate him for figuring everything out. He thought Josie would huddle close and whisper conspiratorially about all their plans going forward, all the ways they'd outsmart Ivy and whoever they were competing against. But Lola still said nothing. And Josie tilted her head back to holler, "Ivy! Ivy! Did they catch you too? Come out! We'll all be on the same team!" Max couldn't see around the corner of any of the server cabinets that surrounded them, but he suddenly felt like the maze was also a game of hide and seek, and they'd reached the point when they were close to someone hiding. It was like he could sense someone nearby, someone holding her breath. It felt like the whole maze was holding its breath. And then Ivy stepped around the corner ahead of them. Ivy looked like she always did, neat and tidy, sweet and a little shy, except maybe her demeanor wasn't quite as dreamy as usual. Usually Max could tell when Ivy was imagining something she wanted to draw, because she got the same faraway look in her eye that Mom got when she was talking about the blueprints for the new wings of her art museum. But Ivy met Max's gaze directly now, so much bolder than usual. This was so jarring that Max had to remind himself, she's just a whatnot. She's not really Josie. Maybe her programming has changed since we're not in school together anymore. Josie ran over to Ivy and threw her arms around Ivy's shoulders. "I was so worried about you," Josie cried, hugging Ivy close. "I was so afraid that I'd gotten you in trouble. I mean, I guess we're both in trouble here, but at least we're together now, and oh, I should have probably wished that you got away safely and nobody knew that you were here with me, but I'm so glad to see your face." Something cruel and scared whispered inside Max. "Josie, stop!" he protested. "This could be a trick, because Ivy's a whatnot, and—" Ivy pulled away from Josie and walked over to stand toe to toe with Max. She was the same height as him. Her eyes met his exactly. "Why would you believe I'm a whatnot when you can accept that Josie isn't?" she challenged. Because, Max stammered. There were so many things he could have said. Because I never really knew you, because you didn't leave me a note saying I'm real the way Josie did, because you were always too busy drawing to talk much to me. But something made him settle on the thing that felt the truest. Because I was always afraid around you, afraid Josie would like you better than me. Max! Josie gasped. I can have more than one friend. Then she seemed to gulp. Except sometimes I was afraid you would like Jack better than me, too. Josie, don't make excuses for him, Ivy said. Don't make it equal. He was the rich kid in class. He thought we were just whatnots. Ivy, we thought each other were whatnots, Josie said. Max didn't even know what that meant. He just thought we were all kids until. When did you find out, Max? Last night, Max said. He suppressed a shiver at the memory. He gazed back and forth between Josie and Ivy. This is so confusing. Last night, Mom and Dad told me my whole class was only whatnots, but I knew Josie wasn't. And if you aren't a whatnot either, Ivy, were Mom and Dad lying about everything? Was our whole class real? Your mom and dad were misinformed, Lola said, suddenly unfreezing. Max had almost forgotten she was still there. The Whatnot Corporation deceived them. So don't be angry at them for saying you were raised with whatnots. They believed it themselves. Although, if you want to be angry at them for thinking you needed whatnots, that's up to you. Or for making decisions that led you to being in the maze. That's on you and them both. And Josie and Ivy, too. And Josie's father and Ivy's parents. Okay, Max said. He was still trying to put the puzzle pieces together. So Ivy and Josie were both rich kids, too. And your parents thought they were paying for you to have whatnots? If that's true, then all our parents could sue the Whatnot Corporation. Ivy turned back to Josie. See, Ivy said, it's easier for him to imagine that we're androids than that we might not be rich like him. You're not rich? Max asked. He wasn't sure how he felt about that, but he tried to smile. That doesn't matter. He expected another chiming to show they'd passed another portion of the test. He expected Lola to pat his head fondly. But that didn't happen. Ivy just rolled her eyes at Josie. See, Ivy said mockingly, the fact that he would say that. He doesn't even know that it matters to be rich or poor. I didn't mean. Max didn't know how he could get himself out of this mess. I had to pretend to be a whatnot to get a good education, Josie said. She had been looking down at the floor, but now she peered straight into Max, her eyes burning. It's not your fault. That's how everything else was set up. But it's all my father could think to do to help me, and all our parents could to pay think of to pay for us was whatnots. I had to sleep at school and pretend I was only in the android's charging station. Ivy did the same thing. So did every other kid in our class, though each of us thought we were the only one. Do you know how lonely that was? We couldn't see our families while we were at school. We always had to pretend when we were around you that our lives were just like yours, but they weren't. Even the things that looked the same, sitting in the classroom, playing on the playground, acting in the school plays, it was still always different for us because we always had so much to hide. I'm sorry, Max whispered. He wasn't sure why the words came out like a question. Isn't it time for the chimes now? He thought. He did not like this part of the test at all. He glanced toward Lola for help, but she wasn't even looking at Josie and Ivy and Max. She had her head up as if she were listening to something far off in the distance. And then Max heard the sound, too, a rumbling, as if someone was marching toward them. No, lots of someone's, maybe even an army. Lola gathered Max, Josie, and Ivy closer, like a coach trying to get the team to circle up. Make your peace with all that, Lola said. You have to be united for this part, or else. What's coming? Josie asked. The server cabinets in front of them began sliding down, retracting into the floor. One wall of the maze after another slipped away. Only moments ago, Max had wanted to knock them all over like dominoes. So we should have been glad to see them falling away on their own. But it was hard to feel anything but fear, listening to the ominous marching coming closer and closer and closer. It was frightening now to see the walls disappearing, the walls that could have protected them from whoever or whatever was marching toward them. Lola bit her lip. There's a certain model of whatnot, real whatnots. I mean, the androids Francis Miranda Gonzaga originally built, she said. Her voice was almost a whisper, as if she could barely muster the courage to make herself heard over the sound of the marching. Some parents wanted their kids to have a particular type of classmate, a particular type of school experience that they could triumph over. Max's parents never asked for anything remotely resembling this model. You should know that, Max. But so many parents actually asked for model 75663 that the Whatnot Corporation made thousands of them, and they were never retooled for any other use. What's a model 75663? Ivy asked. Lola winced, the broken part of her face seeming to quake with the motion. Bullies, she said. Bullies capable of so much worse than what Max's mom did to me. Bullies who are perfectly designed, laser focused, unrelenting, and determined to completely destroy their victims. Chapter 54. Josie trying to be brave. We're not afraid of bullies, Josie said, but her knees knocked together, as if even her own body was calling her a liar. Yesterday, Josie truly would not have been afraid. Yesterday, Josie had left a note for Max, which was against the rules, and scrambled down multiple flights of stairs to speak to Ivy. The Josie of mere hours ago had sneaked over to Ivy's apartment, again horribly against the rules, and risked everything to stand up for her friendship with Max. But Josie had been so brave for so long, and she'd just finished witnessing all the awful memories of her last 6 years, all the proof that the Whatnot Corporation knew everything bad about her it possibly could. And she'd told Max everything. She'd let him know she wasn't at all who he thought she was. Was he still her friend? Even now? Josie felt like she'd peeled off her own skin. She felt like a newly hatched chick, raw and defenseless and unprotected without its shell. And Lola wasn't helping. Lola kept fingering the broken part of her face as if she couldn't stop. Lola, did someone do that to you? Josie asked. It wasn't Max's mom, Lola said quickly. Her head jerked side to side as if she were losing her more sophisticated programming, as if fear had overwhelmed her circuitry so badly she could function only in the primitive mode. My face casing broke, and the Whatnot Corporation never fixed it. Or they did fix it, and then it broke again because someone broke it. My memory files aren't clear. Was it these bullies who are coming toward us now? Ivy asked. No, of course not, Lola said. But her head jerked up and down as if to say, yes, of course it was those bullies. That was why she was afraid. That was why she couldn't stop touching her wound. The sound of marching was overwhelming now. The last wall fell before them, and Josie got her first glimpse of the rows and rows of Model 75663 bullies, barely 20 feet away. And they looked like people. Kids. From the outside, they looked like all types of kids, short, tall, tiny, big-boned, brown-skinned, white-skinned, brown-haired, blonde-haired, dressed as dancers, dressed as athletes, wearing goggles like they were about to do a science experiment. What they had in common was the same kind of sneer on each of their faces, the kind that said, "Nobody matters but me. Nobody matters but what I want. And you're nothing and nobody. And I won't let you forget it." The bullies came closer and closer. Will they hurt us? Max asked, his voice trembling. The worst way they can, Lola said grimly. Whatnots shouldn't be allowed to hurt humans, Ivy said. Androids aren't allowed to hurt humans. That's like the first rule of robotics. My mother told me that. Lucinda told me that. This. Lola turned to her with sad eyes. Androids aren't allowed to hurt humans physically, she said, but that's not the worst pain humans can endure. The android rules about psychological pain, emotional pain. Those are full of loopholes. Because you humans, you're so vulnerable. A single word can slice you like a knife. A single glance can hurt. So we won't have to fight? Max asked. He raised his fists, and that was so ridiculous it made Josie's heart ache. He looked like a little kitten about to go into a boxing ring. But he lowered his fists now. Then this can't be that bad. Oh, Max, Lola said. The bullies were circling them now, stopping mere inches away. They all stomped at once in unison, ending their last step. The sudden silence afterward was terrifying. Then they began to speak, and that was even scarier. Josie and Ivy, You never deserved anything the Whatnot Corporation gave you, one girl said. Your families deserve to be poor. You're worthless. Trash. Max, you were never going to be anything but a spoiled brat, a boy cried out. If you weren't rich, nobody would like you. Your parents knew that. You're worthless. Trash. That's why they gave you Whatnots. Lola, you were always the worst Whatnot model. You know that Francis Miranda Gonzaga always called you behind your back the best victim. Another kid screamed. It went on and on and on. Sometimes Josie couldn't even tell where the insults were meant for. You're not good at anything. You're too messy. You're stupid. If you'd gone to a real school, you'd know that. And sometimes the screams felt like they were direct hits that exploded in her heart. Josie, your dad never loved you. That's the real reason he sent you away. Max was never really your friend. He doesn't even know who you actually are. You were always mean to Max anyhow. We saw everything. Why would he or Ivy or anyone want to be your friend? Josie wasn't conscious of moving. She wasn't conscious of anyone else shifting positions. But when she looked around for someone to help her, she saw that she and her friends had all drifted apart. Now there were 3 bullies between her and Max, 4 bullies between her and Ivy, 5 bullies between her and Lola. Lola, Josie whimpered. Ivy, Max, please, someone. Ivy was the only one who looked up. Something passed over her face, sympathy, and then resolve. And then she did a strange thing. She tilted back her head and screamed louder than all the Whatnots, louder than Josie would have thought such a quiet girl was capable of. Lucinda! Chapter 55. Max Rescued. 2 new girls appeared out of nowhere. At first, Max thought they were more Whatnot bullies. They were both taller than Max and his friends, and they moved with the same confidence as kids in the middle school recruitment videos Mom and Dad had watched with him. Max had heard Nurse Beverly snort and mutter, "Where are the kids who feel like the tiny solitary pimple on their nose in a giant momentum with flashing neon lights? Where are the kids who sprout 5 inches overnight and suddenly can't take 2 steps without tripping over their own feet?" These 2 girls didn't have pimples, not as far as Max could see, and they were graceful. But they were moving with such confidence through the crowd of bullies, not with them. The 2 girls were shouting as loudly as the bullies, but what they were saying was, "That is not cool. Stop picking on those kids and leave my sister alone. Leave her friends alone." Sister, Max thought. Oh. Both of the new girls had dark hair and dark brown skin, but one was taller than the other, and as she got closer, Max could see how much she looked like Ivy, or at least how Ivy would look in a year or two. That girl reached Ivy's side and threw her arms around Ivy's shoulder. Ivy squealed, "Lucinda, you came!" Ivy and Lucinda and the other girl linked arms and began striding toward Josie. And then Josie joined the chain, and all 4 of them swarmed toward Max. They're rescuing us, Max thought. Ivy's big sister, and well, whoever this is with her. Max realized he'd stopped listening to the bullies, or maybe their cries were weakening. Lucinda, Ivy, Josie, and the mystery girls circled around Max. The bullies took a step back. "Lola, watch out!" Josie cried. The bullies weren't retreating from Lola. In fact, they were closing in on her more tightly. They poked and prodded. They pulled her hair and twisted her arms. "Is she your friend too?" Lucinda asked Ivy. "Then come on, everyone together. This is how you handle bullies. You unite. You protect the weakest link." She began pulling everyone together toward Lola. "We are going to have to fight," Max thought in horror, "because they're touching Lola. She doesn't have any laws protecting her from getting beat up." But the bullies squirmed away as the kids approached. They switched to taunting Lucinda and the mystery girl. "We know what you did. You're just as bad as us. You bullied each other." "You don't get to defend us," the mystery girl said calmly. "You don't know anything about us." "You don't have any power over us at all," Lucinda said. "Over any of us." And maybe there was something magical about those words, because suddenly all the bullies pulled back at once. Their arms and legs retracted. They folded into themselves, just as the android pretending to be Francis Miranda Gonzaga had done in the principal's office. And then, like that android, every single one of the bully whatnots slipped down into the floor. Mere seconds later, there wasn't a trace left of any of the bully whatnots. The floor was completely flat again. The room fell silent. And then the chimes struck. Another test lay ahead of them. Thank you, Max told Lucinda and the mystery girl. We couldn't have done it without you. Quickly, he looked to Josie. He wanted her to see him being polite, being grateful, so she would never think that, as one of those bullies had accused, you and your parents, you only care about money. You wouldn't know how to be anybody's friend. But Josie was watching the new girls. Lucinda, she breathed. You followed Ivy and me to the school, didn't you? You were watching us the whole time. Ivy's sister tossed her hair over her shoulder and hugged Ivy and Josie close. You're like defenseless little hatchlings, Lucinda muttered. I couldn't let you out into the world alone, and it was so obvious what you were going to do. When I saw you and Max's whole family get trapped to the principal's office, I ran outside and right into Lucinda, Ivy reported. And then Lucinda called the only person she could think of who might really be able to help us, the mystery girl said. Me. And I really would have fixed things. She frowned. If the security guards hadn't caught us and taken away our phones and dumped us down here. So I was right all along. There are others in this maze with us, Max thought. Not just other whatnots like the bullies and Lola, but other people? Who are you? Max asked the girl who claimed to be able to fix things. Oh, didn't anyone tell you? The mystery girl asked airily. I'm Ashley.